Here in Maine, we've been dealing with a long-duration winter storm, and that's not going to change anytime soon, at least for the next 2 days. The radar imagery still shows that we're dealing with a lot of wintry precipitation once again, and it has to do with a warm front that pushed to our south yesterday, but is once again back, bringing us more winter precip. We've seen precip of all types today. We saw some more rain closer to the coast, and then freezing rain, sleet, and snow through areas inland. We haven't accumulated too much freezing rain so far, but now that the sun is getting ready to set, things will start to change. This system is also quite expansive. It reaches all the way to areas of Iowa. The warm front reaches towards us here in Maine, and the cold front goes all the way down to Florida and the Gulf of Mexico. And that's why we still have at least another day of this system to deal with in terms of all different types of precipitation. So we still do have a winter weather advisory in effect here, shaded in the purple colors until Monday at 6 a.m. This is for almost the whole state with the exception of areas of the southern coast and the mid coast. Keep in mind that this has not been upgraded to a winter storm warning, so we're still an advisory category here. But let's time things out for the overnight hours. So once the sun goes down, that means it's fair game in terms of that ice accumulation. I think most of it, however, is going to be in areas away from the coastline. The reason for that is that the coast is going to end up being too warm. It's already a little bit warmer, and we're going to advect or suck in some warmer air with this cold front, and that is going to change areas of the coast over from that more mixed precipitation to just plain rain. Once it gets to temperatures like 36, 37, you're not going to be seeing wintry precip at those temperatures. However, areas inland where you can see the pink colors, that's where it's a little bit colder. 32, 31, 33 degrees, that's where you can start to accumulate some of that freezing rain or that sleet. And as the system continues to move through late tonight into early tomorrow, we're just going to keep bringing in warm air. So even at times where the sun isn't necessarily risen yet, we're still going to see warm air begin to be brought in, and that will change more areas over from that frozen precip to just plain rain. And then once the sun rises on Monday, we will warm up enough for all of us to switch over to plain rain. It's not going to be raining the whole day on Monday. However, I think it'll be pretty overcast and dreary. We'll have periods of rain on and off throughout the day. You might end up with a little bit of a break midday, but then we have another front that'll be coming through late in the day, bringing another chance of rain moving through here. And then even into the overnight hours, looks like we'll have another round that comes into the mountains about dinner time or 7, 8 p.m. So on and off rain showers basically throughout the entire day on Monday. So it's going to be quite dreary there. As we get into early Tuesday morning, could even have another batch of precipitation going through areas of the coast, bringing yet more rain. At this point, we won't have to deal with any wintry precipitation because our temperatures during the day on Monday will have risen into the upper 40s, even some low 50s in some spots. And finally, on Tuesday, this system will finally exit our area. We'll be able to clear out throughout the day, and Tuesday ends up with a lot of sunshine. A little bit colder than Monday, though. High temperatures will likely be in the 40s. So I wanted to talk more about the freezing rain. These are some of the freezing rain totals that we got in New Hampshire from last night. And some of these are fairly high, almost an inch or 3/4 of an inch is a lot of ice. But why we're looking at this is that New Hampshire and Vermont and upstate New York were modeled to get a lot more ice than us here in Maine. And the models showed a lot of these numbers, which means it's essentially on track, which means if the models showed us lower numbers, we're likely not going to be getting nearly as much ice as areas of New Hampshire and Vermont. In fact, we already pulled in a little bit in Freiburg here, so far only 1/10 of an inch there, so much more reasonable. Still a little bit slippery, but much more reasonable. And the reason why we won't be able to accumulate as much ice, especially along the coastline, something I mentioned briefly before, is our temperatures. Right now, our temperatures are closer to borderline here, but look, 34 in Portland, 35 in Wiscasset. Hard to accumulate winter precipitation with temperatures like those, even with the sun going down. And as we advect more of that warm air, these temperatures are only going to be going up from there, which means we won't really be able to accumulate too much ice along the coastline, which means I think most of that ice accretion is going to be through areas inland. As we get into the overnight hours tonight into early Monday morning, I think anywhere shaded in the pink here is your best chance of getting that ice accretion. You want to see the low numbers of seeing the zeros, which means less than 1/10 of an inch, or the 0.1s, the 0.2s. I think the best chance of some of that higher amounts is going to be near areas like Greenville, Millinocket, and then back into areas of the mountains. This type of ice is certainly a nuisance and can cause pretty slick surfaces like roads or any untreated sidewalks, may cause some isolated outages, but overall it isn't going to be too much of a problem. I think a few of us could end up in this elevated category, which is 1/4 to 1/2 an inch. That's where we could have some more power outages, roads will be a little bit icier, and where I think none of us should end up would be any of that significant icing where you have a lot of tree damage or widespread outages. I think most of us are going to end up being in this limited category, which means things will definitely be a little bit slick, especially traveling late tonight into early tomorrow morning, but it's not going to cause us too many problems. Something I wanted to point out a little bit interesting, it has a very spring-like feel to it because after this system starts to depart on Monday, we actually have a chance for some thunderstorms. We're in a general thunderstorm risk for Monday, but I think the chances are pretty low, but it just goes to show spring weather can certainly be quite volatile if we're talking about ice tonight and the possibility of a thunderstorm during the day tomorrow. So just to recap, we do have a chance of some icing through areas inland tonight. If you do start to get some ice in your area, please send us an email or a Facebook message. You can also message me on Twitter or Instagram. I would love to know what areas of the state are getting ice and how much. We'll have more information for you tonight on News Center Maine at 11, so stay with us both on air and online, and make sure you stay safe tonight with that ice. Things will get a little bit slippery.